Welcome to the Woman Aesthetic Podcast. Join us in seeking deeper meaning and striving to live fully in our womanhood. Welcome to the Woman Aesthetic Podcast, where we discuss essence, personhood, and the role of women. I'm your host, Anna, and today we will be speaking with Rachel and Mikaela Bailey on how women's gifts of beauty, nurturing, and cherishing the common things in life would benefit the modern world. Rachel graduated from Christendom College, where she studied English literature. She's currently working as a software test manager, and in her free time enjoys exploring ways to deepen and nurture community. Most recently, Rachel started a quarterly Catholic print magazine dedicated to reclaiming truth and goodness through beauty. And Mikaela attended Christendom College for a degree in theology. At that time, she also started designing Catholic saint stickers and created her first business, All Saints Shop. Now, Mikaela works for a website design and business development company and runs Trivium Magazine with Rachel and their two sisters. Rachel and Mikaela, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Anna. We're so happy to be here.
Well, I'm really excited that we will be discussing the concepts of beauty and nurturing and cherishing the common things in life and reclaiming truth. And the reason I wanted to discuss these things with you, Rachel and Mikaela, is because you have this incredible magazine called Trivium that you created every season. And so you deal with these concepts. And I would imagine truly meditate on these topics almost daily. And so I would love to start with hearing how and why each of you came to be involved in this collaborative ongoing project. And what does this magazine mean to you?
Yeah. So Trivium was kind of born of a few things. I think we all had that desire to create something like outside of ourselves. And the conversation kind of started between me and my sister in a Panera. And we were talking about how I always wanted to start a magazine, and my sister loves writing. She loves editing. So I was like, I would love it if you helped me with this. And she was kind of the driving force behind just do it. And so Rachel and Emily graduated together. They're friends. Rachel and I are friends. And it just kind of came to, okay, well, if we're going to do this, we need like a really strong team. And so Rachel reminded me of this actually just before we started. After I left that conversation with my sister, I ran into Rachel in the grocery store and I just in the aisle said, "Hey, Rachel, want to start a magazine?" and spilled it all out to her. And that was the start of that conversation. And then, just kind of took off from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the first thing I remember. I was just in this grocery store. And I think Mikaela said, "Oh, Emily thinks you could be like the executive editor." And I don't even know what this is about. I was like, sure, why not? Of course. Like, I would love to. I've always been interested in magazines and periodicals. When I was a kid, I think maybe like 12 or younger, I actually like started my own little like newspaper for my friends and family. And I was like, my parents really supported me in that endeavor, where they would let me kind of play around on the computer and get articles from my siblings. So I was really developing this idea for gathering people's thoughts and putting it together and then sharing it with people. It was a print thing. So at the time when I was growing up, obviously there was a lot of blogs and things out there. But we always just did snail mail and send it to my relatives. And I think they really loved that. So it kind of has always been on my heart to start that again in some capacity. And so obviously I was really jumped on the idea of starting a magazine. And then the biggest thing we had at that point, after we decided we want to do it, was, well, what are we going to call it? Like, what is it actually going to be about? And everyone's like, everything. Like, it's a Catholic magazine. It's supposed to be about everything. So it took us a while to kind of figure out what was the goal of it. And Emily, Mikaela's sister, came up with the name Trivium, which is three ways, like trivia. And so from there, you kind of get this idea of a crossroads. And so I kind of had this picture of, in the modern world, you have the past, the present, and the future. and we're kind of stuck here where we are. And we have this beautiful richness of history in the past, and we're looking ahead to heaven. And it's kind of hard to reconcile those two things because everything seems so loud and busy. And a lot of the things that we do each day don't seem very important. Like going to the grocery store and buying spinach, every week doesn't seem very exciting. And you can get to a point where you feel like you're going crazy and you feel so out of touch with the good, the true, and the beautiful. So I wanted the magazine to be something that was encompassing these really simple everyday things. And that's where the second meaning of Trivium really came into play, because it's the same thing as like trivia, or for like trivial things, kind of like random tidbits of information. So I thought it would be something that we could kind of bring in where we have this idea of the past, present, and the future, and a sense of journey. And we're trying to bring in beautiful pieces and articles and artwork as these little tidbits of things we find along the way. And some of our contributors are writing about simple things like the food they're baking for their family, or in our upcoming issue, we have a guy talking about gathering firewood for his home. And so there are these really simple things, but we're able to kind of unpack these beautiful concepts and add some bit of joy and beauty to that journey that we have. So that's kind of where it all began. And I could probably keep talking about that for a long time. But
it's good because I want all the details on it. But what I love about you guys saying how it started, was it women in your lives? Like Mikaela, it was your sister, I think you said, who recognized that and you was like, do it. She's the one who prompted you, and you ran across, Rachel was like, Rachel, I think you'd be great at this. Would you do it? Like, I love that in a way. And I know we'll get into the concept of nurturing, but I love that because that is nurturing something out and bringing forth something from another person, which women are so great at doing that. So I love that, how that just started, and this, I don't know. I just love it. But I would love to, let's just dive in and start discussing kind of, and I think you already touched a little bit on it, Rachel, like beauty and common things. And let's talk about how they connect and what really brings them together, because those are really, I mean, I think if you think of them separately, like beauty, common things, you don't necessarily think they flow. You kind of think common things is like, well, it's just boring. It's common. It's everywhere. And beauty, sometimes people think it's like, oh, it's this exotic thing, like you think of them as separate, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you see them coming together.
Drawing on our Christendom education, I guess I'm going to kind of go back to a very basic principle, which is that all of creation is endowed with this beautiful goodness because it's been made by God. And I think it's really easy sometimes to lose that, and when you are bogged down in your everyday tasks. But I love reflecting on some of these bigger, like theological, philosophical principles and kind of saying, what can this mean today for me, like in this moment? And one thing I remember being very struck by studying at college was the realization that everything has this existential goodness it's been created by God, and there's love in it, and there's this design and beauty. And so it's not just another random thing. There is this meaning and intention behind it. And so everything that we're doing and everything that we are using and interacting with and touching and bringing it into our homes is part of this sort of beautiful tapestry in this story. It's sort of think of it as like a love letter almost that God is giving us. So all the little things that we experience are little moments that can mean more if we look enough and if we have that moment of thinking about it. And obviously, because the world because of the fall, there is a lot of this is lost, the significance and the beauty, and a lot of it can be twisted and tainted. But I think it's important that we pause in a sense and really do appreciate some of these very basic principles. So obviously the things we use and interact with are one big chunk of physical objects that are beautiful and that we need to kind of reclaim. But I think another big thing, especially as women, that we have to always fight against is this temptation to forget that the everyday aspects of who we are as women is important to be reclaimed and to recognize that we are beautiful. So I think because of the fall, we really have lost our identity, and that's something we kind of touch on in some of our mission statements for the magazine. Is we're trying to uncover the truth of who we are made to be, which is body and soul in God's image and wonderfully made, beautifully made. And we are precious in God's eyes, but we don't see that. And so even the most mundane of things, in a sense, is the way we think about ourselves, where we think, oh, I just woke up and I just put my hair in a ponytail and put on this giant like hoodie and have to go and whatever, clean the toilet and do my dishes again. And you're not thinking, wow, I am this beautiful temple of the Holy Spirit, and this is the thing to be most cherished. So I think that's the heart of it all, is how can we come to a better understanding of who we are made, our identity. The world has a total identity crisis right now. Everywhere you go, everyone's identifying as something. And our real identity is given by God. And that is what we need to be reclaiming. That is the ultimate truth that we are hoping to reclaim. And so that is like kind of the crux of what we're trying to do with Trivium. And I think what we all need to work on as women, but it's really hard, obviously.
Yeah, no, I think, you're talking about the everyday, and we miss that because to us it's every day, so it just doesn't seem like a big deal. But you made a good point of there is a big identity crisis in this modern world for women, but for everybody really. And we see it come out in different ways, and people identifying as whatever they want, and all of these things are really confusing to them. I think part of it is if we did tune into the everyday, every little aspect of our lives, how we do things and how people present themselves to us, maybe we'll find a little bit of ourselves along the way and build on that. And I like how you brought up the fact that people are lost in a lot of ways. And I'd love to expand on that a little bit. So, how do you think people are impacted when they miss the beauty and goodness in their individual lives? Like what could that do? How could that go wrong in their daily lives? Even with people who have Christ in their lives, it's not like we're any better. It's not like we see meaning in every hidden little thing. But I think we have the tools to see what he wants us to see and learn from those things. But even we miss that. We miss that. And so, we can talk more a little bit more about that, but I also would love to know, like, what can we do to bring these things back and enrich people's lives and enrich our own lives?
Yeah, I think it's a process, and it is a sort of little by little step, where it's going to be small steps in the right direction. I think there are big movements and big things we can do, and some of us might be called to do that. But I think when it comes to an individual level, we have to just keep reminding ourselves to pause, appreciate something beautiful, to put up a beautiful work of art on your wall, or to light your nice candle or something, and to kind of and like allow people to enter into that moment with you and invite them to. And to really cherish and make the most of those little moments you have, and realize that in the next second it might all become completely undone, and you might have to restart again, and your efforts might seem to keep not really getting you in the right direction.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Actually, this past weekend at Mass, our priest gave a great homily. I don't know if you were at the 7 a.m., but his homily was basically, it was about Thomas Aquinas and how he didn't get all of his things exactly right. But he wrapped it into basically how we can't get stuck. We have to always, like Rachel said, take that step and make that like small movement forward. But he tied it in beautifully with like, sometimes you're not always going to move in the exact right direction. And that is not like going to completely, converge your path away from heaven. God will still like work with you and put, I don't know, whether it's a person, whether it's an opportunity, things like that in your life to kind of bring you back. So kind of just, not being afraid to make mistakes and getting too, hung up in that everything has to be right. And it is like, sometimes you do have to get lost to find your way out. It's just whether it's a wake up call you need or, just some time to like come and appreciate the beauty in your life by being in a not beautiful place.
It's true.
It's just sometimes everyone's path is different. And, someone's going to have a walk on the beach and someone's going to have like the deep, dark, thorny woods. Yeah,
I think I think that's part of God being such a good father to us is sometimes we do stray and he allows us to stray because he's like, you're going to learn something from this. And that's what a good father does, but then he always pursues us. He always calls us back and he always shows us the way and shows us the beautiful little nuggets, of truth. And if we're looking for him and we're searching for it, we're going to find it. Because he doesn't just, leave us hanging. And so, no, I think that point that you brought up is like, it is really beautiful because, there are some people who are going to have just an easy walk on the beach and it's breezy or whatever from where you stand. That's what it looks like, but to them, we don't see, the things that they have to deal with, but like maybe some people do carry but like you don't see the things that you're carrying, or you see the things you're carrying. You don't always see the things that other people are carrying. So I love that. That is that constant truth that is in everybody's life, well, I do want to talk about truth actually, because that's one of the goals that you're trying to reclaim truth in this world. So in what ways do you think that it has been lost?
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussions around this topic, especially being a print magazine. That is kind of, I think, where we get the idea of having truth. We're in a society where things are always on. The TV's on, the radio's on, the podcasts are on, everything's just like going all the time. And in a like society that's always on, things are always changing. I was telling Rachel, you get those like developing story and it changes every like 2 seconds. They're like, oh, well, this happened. Oh, never mind. Like now it says that this happened or that happened. And so it feels in that way almost like the truth is just like constantly changing. Yes, it's developing, but people are so quick to hop on things and make their own truth. And that's kind of like the society we live in. People make their own truth. So we've talked about that by doing a print magazine, we've kind of found a way to invite people into like the action of resting. So taking a moment, stepping back from all of that on and diving into something that is much more slow, much more timeless. That's what we always talk about. Like the Catholic Church has lasted as long as it is because it is rooted in truth.
Yeah, my next question actually was something that flows from that, which is how do you hope to bring it back with the truth that has been lost? What do you hope to do to kind of regain it again?
Yeah, so I'm going to first start with a little bit of an anecdote. I distinctly recall at some point having this realization that so many times our understanding of a situation is formed solely based on our emotional response to it. And like in the context of some sort of a some sort of a news item, or maybe someone made a statement, and everyone immediately starts taking sides from an emotional standpoint. It's very rare that you have someone who is kind of entering into the dialogue because they've just assessed it in a very like rational way. And obviously we have emotions and that's a natural part of what it means to be human. But I think that is really due to the fast pace that we have of the way news and information get shared. So before you even, as Mikaela was saying, before you even have all the facts of something, you are immediately pro or con. You already have a side, and the truth kind of gets lost in it. And people, the main players around that scenario are really lost in it because everyone is immediately just kind of grabbing from it their emotional response. And then that becomes for them their truth. And there you really do have this sense of relativism where everyone is suddenly saying, well, this scenario happened in this other country, but I immediately have kind of made my own truth out of it. And so that's become for them what they always think that happened in that. And I was realizing this even for myself. So even if you might think, oh, I'm a principled person, I'm educated, and I have, the church to guide me and a good education, it still is really easy. Just the way you have this news stream and the way you have just this interconnectedness of the entire world, really. Everything is so fast paced that it is really hard to kind of take a step back and to see what the truth might be, to kind of get to the bottom of it. And so when it comes to Trivium, our main goal for having a print magazine is wanting to have a slower pace. So, we're quarterly, so even it takes a long time to work on these things. And we're not really touching on hot topic issues in a quick way. Sometimes we might talk about things that are more relevant, but we're kind of stepping out of that quick, immediate response, emotional cycle and trying to talk about real problems or thoughts or experiences people might have, but in a way that you've sort of reflected on it after a while and you've kind of discussed it with people and you're writing on it, you're reflecting on it. So it makes you kind of use your thoughts and your emotions together as a writer and as a reader, where you're kind of coming to these topics and using like your God-given talent to uncover something beautiful. So that's really one of the main things that we're trying to do is have the medium for our content is to be in some way slower, because so many times you're just getting things inundated all the time. And I think outside even of the magazine, we're trying to get back into this habit of having printed things around to kind of re-normalize, in a sense, wanting to read something physical. So even if our readers aren't even reading our magazine, we want them to have it on their coffee table with a stack of books and have that as like a normal part of their life in their home, to kind of have another thing that they can pick up in between breaks and things, where they can read something beautiful that is not in this like immediate rabbit hole of the internet. And that's going to connect them really with other Catholics who are like their peers, their friends. A lot of times, many of our subscribers and readers know a lot of our contributors through the Catholic community, whether or not it's through the Christendom Network or just like friends or relatives and coworkers. And we have people over the country who've kind of been brought into this. And so I think that's all part of what we're trying to reclaim, is this truth of a sense of community and a sense of appreciation for the gifts that other people we know have, and to give people who have these gifts like their due in a sense. Like we want them to have a place to be showcased and appreciated, and for that to be shared by people, and not just to be something that's a clickbait and then kind of forgotten, but to give them something that's lasting and beautiful, and to uplift and uphold these people. Especially a lot of our writers are not super well known. They're not like career writers. They're busy mothers. They're professionals who have like long hours at work. They're college students, or like my grandmother's a contributor to our next issue. She's going to be 95 soon, and she submitted a poem, and I'm so happy to like share that with the world. So I think that's all part of what we're trying to reclaim, is the dignity that we all have and these amazing people that we have in our lives, to give them something that is beautiful and to really tangibly share that with people and have them kind of join us in this as a real community effort.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely beautiful. Like all ages, including all the way up to 95. Like we all have something to give. And I love that you have this magazine where people can give. And yeah, you talked about, basically talked about this magazine as timeless, which I think it truly is timeless. And what I think that really makes it timeless is that slowing down that you talked about. You have the truth and taking the time to reflect on it so that you're not straying from it, but you're deepening your understanding of it, and then bringing your emotions in. And what are these common things mean to you? What do your everyday things mean to you? What are the seasonal things mean to you? And everybody having their own perspective of it and their own experience, but they're having a common place to share their experiences and come together and enjoy each other's reflections. I don't know. I just think that's beautiful. And so, with your first Trivium issue, you guys titled it Nurturing. So why was it important to choose that name?
Yeah. As our first issue, it kind of, I feel like, ties into that. It felt appropriate because it was born out of like the nurturing of a thought. So not only like as an inaugural issue, it fit the vibe. But it kind of is setting up the tone of what we're hoping to accomplish and the message we're trying to like get to our subscribers and our contributors of you plant these seeds in your daily life, and they're there, they're waiting, but they're not going to grow unless you give those seeds like the proper care and the proper attention to do their thing. Something like might sprout up out of the blue, but most of the time it's just not going to happen if you're not like giving it the sunlight, you're not giving it the water, you're not, pulling out the weeds. So that it was kind of like the heart of it, is like, how do we nurture the things that we've set out to do, the gifts we've been given, all of those things, so that they will grow into something lasting, and share their beauty, with the world, or just like the stranger passing by on the sidewalk, wherever it is, wherever it's planted. So yeah, I think that was like the root of it. I feel like I'm making plant puns now.
No, but I think that's a perfect tangible way that everyone can see what nurturing does. For a plant, can you imagine what it does for a human being, where you really, like you say, nurturing and fostering their gifts, and you're just really bringing that out of someone. And so do you think that, I guess you do kind of think that nurturing is important, in order for individuals to flourish in the community. But what would that look like if someone was flourishing in a community? What would that look like, do you think?
Sorry, if someone was flourishing or wasn't?
Yeah, if someone was flourishing, like if you've been nurturing them, either it could be yourself, like you flourishing, but a human being, if they were flourishing, what would be the fruits of their life?
You see this in those people who are really on fire and glowing, sort of like an internal glow. But they have a sense of peace. There's a sense of both energy and peace. They're usually very involved in activities and things, and yet you can tell they also are at peace internally. And I think to be properly, or the result of being properly nurtured is that you're going to know who you are and be at peace with that. And you're going to be, your well, in a sense, is going to be filled enough that you're able to then kind of burst out into the community and do things. And I think it's so important to find ways to nurture everyone in your life, whether it's your children, your siblings, your friends, just random people who you pass by, in little ways, to do something that can just add like a little extra. Like, you're both wanting to give them like the little bit of sunlight and water that like a plant requires, but then also maybe some extra like fertilizer or something else in addition. And I think sometimes nurturing can also require, maybe in a sense, if we're going with the plant pun still, but even like a sense of pruning or something. Like, there is going to be this virtue, and different passions and thoughts are going to be tempered in a sense. And so you do get like an idea of maybe some sort of fraternal correction, or just like to really truly care and love for someone. You really do wish their full goodness and in every way. And so I think when we're trying to nurture people, it's not simply just doing nice things for them, but it is really being there for them in every way. Maybe helping them to see the truth of, whatever situation they're in, or sometimes having a little bit of a tough love, or I don't know, helping to steer them back on course. But it's seeing the full person and trying to help them to see who they've been made to be. So yeah, I think when you see someone who's been properly nurtured, you instantly know there's just this sense of, like I said, inner peace. They know who God's made them to be, and they have kind of accepted that, and they've accepted that they probably have some flaws, and we all do, but they're kind of working with it. As we were talking earlier about how we little by little can kind of reclaim truth and find beauty in life. I think nurturing is also like a little by little process where over time you're kind of, as you or whoever is helping to be nurtured is growing, what you're doing is going to change. Like a larger tree is going to need more care than a teeny tiny little sapling. And so it's going to change in different seasons, but it's going to be like, that's the yield is going to be like all the more great. So yeah.
Well, I think that's actually so beautiful, and exactly what you guys are doing with this magazine, because you're seeing all these people, all these creative people, photographers, writers, artists who are contributing to your magazine. You are seeing their talents, and you're not just demanding a certain product from them. You are welcoming what they have to offer. So that man who's talking about, what was it, like bringing?
Yeah.
Bringing firewood. Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, bringing firewood. It's not like you're like, I'd like you to tell us about this thing about wood or whatever. Like, you're letting him bring what it is that he's interested in, and you're nurturing that out of him, and then you're presenting it. And I think that's also a testament to them when they see it in such a beautiful way, with amongst other beautiful pieces from other artists. I think it really makes you kind of light up inside of like, wow, like I did that, and you guys brought that out from them and welcomed that wholeheartedly and made it into this beautiful project. And so I think that's exactly what you guys are doing, which I think is incredible. It's much needed. And yeah, when I was reading the first issue, I truly believe that the magazine is more than just like another pretty thing to have. I think it is beautiful, but I think there's so much more to it. And yeah, the word that I kept coming back to when I was looking at it, I was like, oh my goodness, this is so rich. Like that is the word that just kept coming back to me. And you can tell that everything is really intentional in the magazine, just everything, all the quotes, all the colors, the flow, just layout, everything. And so you guys have a second issue coming out very soon. And what is the theme for this one? Would you mind sharing? I don't know if you'd mind.
Of course. So the next issue is going to be on harvesting. So we've sort of picked different themes, kind of all from nature for this first set of 4 issues, with summer, autumn, winter, and spring. And then we'll probably continue to do some sort of a similar kind of pattern, but all of the themes for this first set are kind of drawn from the seasons in nature. So for the autumn issue, we wanted to kind of delve into harvesting. And it's funny, I was actually just writing the letter from the editor maybe last week, because we just sent it to the printer last week. But I was thinking back, and when I first had thought we were going to do the harvesting as the theme, I really thought we were just going to get completely inundated with people writing about pumpkin patches or canning or homesteading or something. And one guy, even when I told him, he was like, oh, well, that's crazy, because we don't harvest. People were I thought people were going to take it very literally, because he was arguing, the guy who was kind of pushing back was arguing no one in modern society is really actually harvesting. We're not out there gathering the wheat or something. I wish some of us were, and some of us maybe are blessed to. But I was a little bit afraid that everyone was going to take it very literally. And I wanted it to be kind of more of a starting point to kind of explore the deeper autumn themes. So obviously within the season, we have All Souls Day, All Saints Day. We have a lot of these ideas of almost death and passing on. And you see that in nature. Even with a harvest, the only way you're able to gather all of these beautiful bounty of food in is by it dying. When the pumpkins are ready to pick, when they kind of come off the vine. So there's this sense of a sort of, I don't know, almost a loss and a death when you're harvesting. And so actually the one of the themes that really came out in this issue, instead of just apple orchards and pumpkin patches, which we have plenty of pumpkin things too. But the thing I was kind of surprised and pleasantly surprised to see was we had a few people writing more on this idea of memento mori, and how that is something we need to kind of tie into our life, especially at this change of the seasons where you see the leaves falling and dying, and soon it will be that stark, bleak winter where everything is kind of sad and depressing. But I think if we think about harvesting more as the heavenly harvest, where at the end of our life, we will say goodbye to this world, and we will have to be kind of plucked off of the vine, but gathered up for a better thing, gathered up for the feast. So another thing we sort of tied in with this issue is the idea of feast. So we we have kind of these two juxtapositions of harvesting in death and then harvesting and feasting. And I think it's really beautiful the way that all kind of panned out and it was all just our contributors writing, and it's just so lovely. As you were saying earlier, it's beautiful. All these different people from all these different walks of life, they're not I don't think they're in cahoots, but they're all writing these things. We even had a few people who are literally using the same quotes and the same phrases and things. Phrase, everyone was as the autumn leaves come, and it was a little funny. As you're reading them, you're just okay, they would start out with that and then kind of move into these deeper topics. But it was just this beautiful kind of, collaboration in a sense, where we have all these different writers kind of coming to the table and bringing their gifts to this feast. So I think in the end, the idea of harvesting, especially as Catholics, that we want to reflect on, and that we're going to try to reflect on in this issue, is this idea of the world is not really our permanent home. And just as we are, taking all of the vegetables up from the garden, we will also be taken up from here, but we're going to eventually go home into like the eternal garden in a sense. And so that is the main like idea. I guess that's where it kind of evolved into. And I wasn't really sure exactly what harvesting was going to end up as. It's funny. We came and we brainstormed. We have the themes for the next 2 issues as well, all planned. And one day, I don't know when, we just sort of came up with them randomly. That's how we've done most of this magazine. It just kind of happens. But we just sort of wrote them down, and I kind of wrote a quick little summary about them to give to contributors. But we really left it in their hands as to how they were going to interpret it. So harvesting, it also comes, I think, really naturally after nurturing, because you really can only harvest something if it's been nurtured. Like if something has not been nurtured, it's going to wither up and like not succeed. Like if you don't take care of your garden, it's just gonna, we all know, I know, I've had many a failed garden where you don't have a harvest because you didn't nurture your zucchini plant or whatever.
Not to be specific about Rachel, what died in your garden.
But yeah, so I think all of the themes have just sort of tied in. I mean, it really just shows the beauty of how, like, I don't know, God's wonderful kind of plan for creation, how all of these things that we're kind of drawing on from nature are tying together and then are kind of shining forth in these bigger, like, spiritual realities as well. So I'm really excited for it. It has really just tied in nicely. And we do still have pumpkin spice things, jack-o'-lanterns, but there's also this like more deeper theme throughout.
I think it's so beautiful that a lot of people came to like the same things that they were writing about. And I think it goes back to a little bit in the beginning of our conversation, we were talking about truth. And when you slow down and you meditate on the truth and you really seek it out, there's gonna be common things that follow from it. You're not gonna be like so far all over the map, because then it's like, well, truth is grounded. It's not like flying up in the air with all of your poofy ideas. There's something that grounds it. And so hearing that they did, even using the same phrases sometimes, I think that's really beautiful, because they did slow down. They did think about it, and having like the same human emotions, reactions, they're coming out, but then the individual strings of thought and how they continue to flow, like you can see how people were different, and what their whatever the work of art was, whatever it ended up being in the end, so I don't know. I just think that's like such a beautiful concept to think about. But how do you hope that this magazine will impact those who come across it, like this new issue?
I really hope that our readers will find something maybe not new, but something old in a new way. I don't think that anything we're ever really writing about or going to write about is ever going to be wildly groundbreaking. Like there is a lot of other really great content providers out there, and there's so all of Western, culture is at our fingertips these days. So I don't think we're going to be really having too much that's earth shattering. But my goal for this next issue and all of our issues is if just a few subscribers are able to see something that's old, something that's timeless, but in a new light, then I think we'll have achieved something. And honestly, even though I'm the one who's like behind this and I'm reading all these people's submissions, like I have already been very touched and influenced by our contributors. Like our issue 1 contributors, there's so many like funny little things. Some of it's just kind of like it's kind of become almost a joke where I've started some of these different phrases and things that you've read it so many times that it's kind of become so much a part of you now that you see something and you kind of laugh because it's a sort of internal joke. But other things, I feel like I've been truly kind of taught and educated by our subscribers and our writers, both by the content people are providing and then people's thoughts that they've shared after reading it, the feedback we've received. So it's been really like a growing process. And I think because I have like so much of my time and energy put into this, I almost feel like I'm like the person who's probably, or all of us, but as a team, we're probably the ones who are in a sense almost going to get like the most learning from it maybe. And I hope that our readers obviously get a lot too, but I just know that even with this next issue, there's been so many things where like I always love to pray, you know, when you pass a cemetery or something, but now I'm also thinking about those writers who wrote about these themes. And so they're kind of now being brought into my thought, and I can kind of think about them and pray for them or appreciate the things that they've given me, those little phrases or reminders to kind of really drive a point home. So, they've kind of become a part of who I am now and help me to become a better person, I think.
We actually also, with this issue, have a way that even the subscribers who, you know, weren't contributors have a sneaky little way that they can contribute with a fill in the blank, and they can grab their pen and, you know, fill out their magazine themselves. So that is something to keep an eye out for. Now everyone at home can also contribute in their own magazine. So yeah, it tied in perfectly. So.
Well, I love that that's truly bringing a community together. Even those who didn't, you know, get to put their pieces of art in there, or like the writers getting their homes or whatever articles in there, they truly get to sit at home in the cover of their home with their, you know, with their coffee, with their tea and the coziness of the season and still be a part of it. I think that's really beautiful. And also, I know we were talking about how you guys having this magazine and bringing the community together are really nurturing them, but they're nurturing you right back. And you're getting to grow and become better in this job of giving back to the community. And it's this life cycle, just this flowing life cycle, the circle. And I just think that's so beautiful. I don't know. That's just, that just makes me so happy, because the world just truly needs this beauty, that's this depth and just goodness of things, like real good things, and people being involved and pouring out their hearts and souls in the most honest way. And I think this magazine could absolutely do that for the community. Well, before we wrap things up, I asked this to all my guests. If you could give women one piece of advice, it could be on any of the topics that we discussed today, or something else, what would it be?
Yeah, I think we actually touched upon this one in the beginning, and I guess I should credit my sister for this piece of advice. Just do it. I've actually feel like this has been told to me so many times over the year, and it's been kind of teased out in different areas of my life. There's always going to be an unknown and factors that you can't control. And you can't let that stop you from achieving something good. Not to say don't plan, don't think about it, don't pray about it. But at some point, you have to put the thinking aside and just dive into it, see where it's going to lead you. They say trust in God. Sometimes you have to fall into God. Yeah, don't let the unknown hold you back from doing anything. Just take the leap.
Yeah, I like it. I would say, especially to the women, since this is kind of directed at women, we all are called, especially as women, with this unique gift to nurture life and beauty. And I think it can sometimes be hard to figure out exactly what that's going to look like at certain times of your life. And, different resources you have available. But I had a sort of revelation at some point recently that no matter what stage in life you're in, no matter if you are, a mom of many children or a student at a dorm or a nun or whatever, all women has like a very unique and womanly way that they take care of their home. And usually, even the most like scattered of women usually has something beautiful. There's a womanly touch. Like, you know, immediately when you go into like a guys only home, and where you go into a home where a woman has had her finger somewhere, you know, there's a throw pillow, there's a scented candle, there's cute lights, there's something. And I think that kind of captures this idea that no matter who you are or where you are in your life, you can start to bring beauty into your home in little ways. And from there, it will kind of radiate out into your community. And you may not even be able to notice the signs, but your family, your friends, the people who you just interact with casually, they're going to be able to pick up on that beauty that you have been nurturing in your home. And they're going to really appreciate that in ways that you will probably never even be aware of. So basically, it's not advice as much as just more of an affirmation that no matter what your calling is, no matter like what your final destination might be or where you are right now, as a woman, you have this beautiful, amazing gift, and it will be like, just give it a teeny bit of nurturing and it will radiate outward and like impact everyone in your community. You don't need to start a magazine or do something or start a podcast. You just have to, you know, have a little bit of that appreciation for beauty and kind of let it shine forth. And I don't think it requires all that much, but I think it's going to have like a huge impact on everyone around you. So yeah, that would be my thought.
Well, Rachel and Mikaela, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us about these topics, and also sharing your incredible magazine.
Of course. Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
It's been wonderful. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to the Woman Aesthetic Podcast, and let's connect on Instagram at the Woman Aesthetic Pod. And if you're loving the podcast, I would be so honored if you'd go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave me a review. Until next time.